Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm Grace Holland. A confession has surfaced in connection to a local murder case that's gotten nationwide attention. You may remember that Avantae Deven is accused of killing two of her adopted children in Fayetteville. It's a case we're following closely here on the Daily Download. A recording was shared only on WRAL Wednesday that reveals a family member admitted to helping dismember one of the children's bodies. WRAL's Chris Lovingood interviewed the person who recorded it and explains why this family member isn't facing charges at this point. Chris, thanks for being here and continuing to stay on top of this.
No, always happy to be here to get you some kind of perspective on it.
So let's start with the details of the investigation up to this point for folks who maybe haven't been keeping up very closely with this case.
And, of course, they can go back to the other WRAL Daily Downloads if they want to catch
Yes.
up. But to give you the abridged version, basically, there's a woman named Avantae Deven. She's a Fayetteville mother accused of killing her two adopted children, Blake and London Deven. The investigation was sparked from a mental health call going back to late last year. And at the time, a person at the home, according to police, told them that they hadn't seen Blake in 5 years. And then when they did last see him, he had a broken arm. Public documents list Blake was reported missing months before authorities made an announcement before that happened late March. And then investigators also said that Avantae Deven essentially had someone else in the home buy tools and then dismember Blake's body. Now, this arrest warrant also indicates that Deven enlisted a family friend to pretend to be Blake during a Cumberland County Department of Social Services visit. And then lastly, we recently got a list of known aliases that police say Avantae Deven used, including Prentice Adams, Prentice Ches, Prentice Gianni, Ava Maxwell, and Michelle Spiegel. And that last name is actually one of the names that her ex-husband told me was on an ID in a hidden lockbox that he found before he left her.
It just is mind-boggling every time we talk. I think that this case can't get weirder, and then something happens that is just so crazy.
There's so many, and not to sound cliche, but twists and turns where I sit there and my jaw drops and I'm going, how did this happen? The same thing with this recording. When the person reached out to me, I was like, what? Mm-hmm. Where did this come from? And then that's how this particular aspect just kind of started. Yeah,
and so you said that this person reached out to you. So how did that all happen?
Well, like all things, social media. So I have been putting updates on TikTok, as you know, and that's usually how a lot of people reach out to me. Admittedly, there's some people that they have tips. They're not really tips. They're just kind of, hey, I heard a thing, may have seen a thing. You know us, we deal in facts. And a man by the name of Nathan Mitchell reached out, and he said, hey, I was debating on whether I should do this or not, but I've seen your reporting. I have a recording from someone saying that they dismembered Blake Deven's body. Now, before I continue, I want to be very clear. We had to be careful in how we told the story for a couple of reasons. We don't name the person who's in the call because this person, to our understanding, has not been charged, so we have to be fair. And then we also disguise that person's voice in the recording that people will hear because, again, the person hasn't been charged. It might be identifiable to people who are maybe in that area. So, again, it's all about fairness. But because of what is revealed on that recording was so jarring and so noteworthy, so newsworthy, that I was appreciative that he sent it for the sake of us getting to the truth of this. And then I took the next step asking him if he was willing to be interviewed. And he said, yes, people need to be held accountable. Now, again, the person in the recording has not been charged, but that does not mean that we cannot report about it. That's why we've been trying to be very delicate and deliberate in how we've been bringing forward in it.
Right. And so what is said on that recording that is such a revelation in this case?
So I think the biggest thing on the recording is the fact that the caller admits to being forced by Avantae Deven to get rid of Blake Deven's body. You could even hear from the snippet right here, and I want to warn people who are listening. It's we've taken the time to bleep out the curse words, which there are plenty, but it's grim what you're going to hear. Listen.
She starved him to the point where it killed him, and she never called the cops or the ambulance. She starved him so much that she killed him, bro. And then she didn't call the ambulance. She didn't call the police. She didn't try and make up a story to tell them, oh, well, he passed away. Like, she literally had me buy a trash can, dude, and keep him in there for a month. And then after that, she literally had me buy a saw to cut his open and disintegrate the body, dude. Like, this messing with my head. I keep having nightmares of this shit since I've been back here. I had to watch his body burn.
And then that last bit there that you heard, I had to watch his blank body burn. You hear how distraught they are, the distress in the voice. And when I heard that, I go, okay, that is worth reporting. Not for, it's violent. No, that's not why. It's, you can hear what appears to sound like trauma in this person's voice.
Yeah.
And because of what is revealed in it, I had to report about this. I had to.
Yeah. And so for the person who had this recording, what were the circumstances that they even got this confession?
Fair question, because this recording was actually made in, I believe, April of 2022. And you hear that date and you go, Chris, that was 2 years ago. Where was
well
this recording
before
in that
this
time?
investigation started.
So Nathan has a connection with the person on the recording. Again, being careful how I word it. So, but he at the time took the recording because he and this person were having a previous dispute. Wasn't even related to this. It was something totally different, but he wanted to record their conversation in case that individual said something that he could later use in court. He was not expecting that. In fact, if you listen to the recording, the parts that he has in there, he sounds very dismissive of this person. And I asked him about that. Seriously, if you listen to him, he's very just nonchalant. And it's because he didn't believe the caller. He says that this caller had a history of not being truthful, lying, giving half-truths, that kind of thing. And he was just kind of fed up with it because now they had, this has escalated into a point where they had a previous existing conflict. And so his thought was, okay, I'll record this. That way I have evidence to kind of prove my point. And then plot twist, he finds a different type of evidence that he was not expecting. And then he had it, and again, he didn't believe at the time. He heard what happened there, and he even says very clearly he did not believe this person. And he just forgot about it. He made it, okay, whatever, let it go. Fast forward to after Avantae Deven got arrested, and Nathan's wife essentially had a eureka moment where she went, hey, do you remember that one recording that you made? You need to listen to it. And she went and found it somewhere on, I don't know, device, what have you. And she played it for him. And he said the second he heard that, after realizing that the arrest happened, it was kind of like oh my gosh. And he said, I got to get this to someone. And I don't think it was too long after, or I'm not sure when, but he said that an FBI agent reached out to him, and then he gave the recording, etc. And his thing is, he wishes so badly that he came forward sooner. He just legitimately did not believe this person because of the whole crying wolf kind of thing. Somebody was making
and it's so outrageous.
Yes, because you hear that and you're thinking, that's something you would see on like a Netflix documentary or like
Right.
Dateline, and then plot twist, what is being said in the recording matches up with what police are saying
Right.
2 years later, back in June. So, he wishes he came forward, but he did come forward. He provided the recording, he said, to the FBI, and presumably they provided to Fayetteville police. But, it's, again, you can listen to the whole recording on WRAL.com. And I say whole recording, let me put an asterisk next to that. We had to make edits again to remove identifying verbiage of the person, and then we changed the audio so it's not so blatant who the person is. But yeah, it's pretty jarring to listen to in its entirety. The entire conversation, I think, was like 12 minutes. We had to snip that down, but the parts that you hear that you saw in my story, that's the part that we're like, all right, we have to report on that.
Right. Let's take a quick break right there, and we'll be right back. Chris, as you said, we're being very careful with reporting this recording because we don't know if it's being used by prosecutors at all. What legal insight have you been able to get about why charges haven't been announced in light of this.
So one of the things we do in situations like this, we don't have someone that we necessarily go to specifically for every case, but we try to find legal experts that might be able to surmise some information based off what we give them. They kind of give their expertise. And so I went to he is a former North Carolina Supreme Court judge, Carl Fox. He still practices law. He's not a judge anymore. And I mean, this is a man who is well ingrained into like the legal system. He was district attorney at one point, et cetera. He knows what he's talking about. And so I played the audio for him and I go, hey, listen to this, and just asked him why would investigators not announce charges yet based off this? And he said what I figured he was going to say, but we're journalists. We have to get that expertise. I did not go to law school. I've watched Law and Order, but I did not go to law school.
Sat through a few court cases
exactly
in my career. But.
Yeah, and you can surmise based off that, but he essentially was saying that, this is a situation where, yes, and he even says, if you listen to the audio, this person sounds distraught. It's quite possible, that person may have acted under duress. And when you have something like that, if you believe, and these are his words, you have to believe someone participating in something like that would be doing it under some degree of duress or coercion, and not just because they were tra-la-la wanting to just cut someone up to see what it was like. And essentially what I gathered from him is this is kind of a legal tactic, right? So if you've got somebody who's committed like the main crime, so to speak, which in this case would be the deaths of Blake and London Deven, and you have somebody that may have assisted in the dismemberment of the body, who do you want more if you had to pick? Do you want the person that you believe actually did the wrongdoing for the most part, or the person that did wrongdoing, but in this particular case, to a lesser degree? Again, both crimes being alleged are heinous, but if in the scope of things, they may be going after a so-called big fish. You go after the person who's the one they believe is the true perpetrator of the crime, and yes, they may have coerced someone into doing something, but that person who was possibly coerced could be their means of getting what they need to in terms of information for this. But us as journalists, we can never assume anything. We can never assume that, oh, well, they're not doing this. We have to ask questions. That is why I got this recording, and we reached out to investigators asking, hey, this recording exists. Were you aware of it? Did you know about it? And I know they are likely not going to answer those questions, but we still have to ask.
Yeah, we're the ones who have to ask.
We have to. We're the watchdog of the community, I think is how people say it. But, but in that regard, I will say this. The one thing I could, and if I could ask them a lot of things about their investigation, I'm sure like that would be, useful in terms of trying to peel back the curtains to see what's going on. But what I also want to do, I really want to talk to Fayetteville police about the challenge of this case. Several people that I've interviewed about this who have connections with it, Blake's biological mom, his biological aunt, London's biological mom, all of them, they say that Fayetteville police, they have done an amazing job keeping them informed, taking steps. They had the arrest, obviously. Like they're very impressed with what's been happening, and they don't live out here. They live out on the other side of the state. They live over in the western part of the state.
And that's not. I feel like in a lot of cases like this, you don't hear that kind of feedback.
No, and they are very happy with how they have been handling this case, and the FBI keeping them up to date with DNA testing, et cetera. And that's why I want to ask them about that, because clearly they are working hard. And this is a difficult case, right? Like I gave you the breakdown at the beginning of this episode where this happened 1.5 years plus ago in terms of when things started to actually manifest in terms of, setting police on the course. But Blake and London were missing for like a while, and there was no timeline. Police were asking for a timeline. We tried to piece together a timeline. Again, you can look at that. We've pieced together on WRAL.com, but this could not have been an easy case. At least that's from my point of view. And I want to ask them about the challenges that they were facing. And then also, and you know this part, no one saw these kids, to our understanding. We've talked to neighbors. Oh, I remember maybe seeing someone outside one time, or someone was out playing, but they couldn't quite remember wholly. Like, oh, yeah, I definitely remember that kind of thing. And it's like, how do you get from point A, which is not even looking for a crime, where they got a mental health crisis call and that kind of led them to it, and then to point B, you got an arrest with like just holes in the story along the way.
Yeah. And those holes are 2 people who've been missing for years, 2 kids.
Two kids missing for years. And honestly, with that, the press conference that happened back in June, I had asked police, like, hey, why did it take such a while to bring these charges? Anybody else at the minimum might be charged with like negligence. Which is a fair question. I believe it's a fair question.
A lot of people have raised that.
But and maybe the way I asked that may have come off a certain way. But I asked that because that's reasonably what someone is going to ask, and what people were asking in this case. And so I asked it and I had to follow up. But and again, I know they're not going to talk to me specifics about the case. But now, if I could, I would love to talk with them just about how difficult this is, because this cannot be easy. And yet they're making progress. That's noteworthy.
Right. And a lot of times in court cases like this, the point at which we do start to get details from investigators, prosecutors, all of those folks, is court dates. So do we know the next time that Avantae Deven is expected in court?
October 3rd.
Okay.
And in terms of what will happen that day, it kind of depends. The last two scheduled were like administrative type stuff, paperwork, that kind of thing. She didn't necessarily have to show up. This one, I essentially have to just kind of keep calling the DA's office asking, hey, is she going to be in court, that kind of thing, to get more specifics, because this case, it's not over yet. I mean, that's why I keep staying on it, trying to get more information. I am still working on one particular angle of it that I might be able to report on soon. But I think the core here is obviously that there are two people who were in this world and they no longer are, and the families deserve answers. Everyone deserves answers.
All right. Thank you, Chris. We appreciate it. And thank you for listening to the WRAL Daily Download. Another great way to get WRAL news is the Morning Briefing newsletter. It's a daily email that's waiting in your inbox every morning with local news, events, and headlines to get you ready for the day. Sign up at WRAL.com/newsletter.